Welcome back, Not in Vegas family. In the first two episodes, we talked about the brain that never got a chance to grieve and why your nervous system is tired of being strong. Today, we bring these truths into body because my guest today is not just someone who studied nervous system healing, she had to live it to survive. A former Washington, D.C. political executive, Erica Savage is not just a coach, she is a force. As the founder of the Reframe Brain, she has transformed the way athletes, executives, and change makers rewire stress, reclaim identity, and reframe to rise stronger from adversity. Sorry. After surviving a life altering accident that made her a polytrauma patient, Erica rebuilt her body, mind, and spirit, and now teaches others to do the same. Her lived expertise fuels a methodology that blends neuroscience, informed practices, and emotional regulation. In July 2025, Erica debuted her transformative memoir, The Flight to Fly, a raw and powerful testament to resilience that is already inspiring readers and fueling her mission to spark global conversations on healing and human potential. As an author, speaker, media contributor, and neural performance coach, Erica doesn't just talk about change, she embodies it. As a licensed minister, her unique blend of faith and neuroscience backed strategy is helping athletes and leaders alike break limits, master their minds, and redefine what's possible. Erica is the co-owner of the Tri-City River Gators arena football team, where she serves as health and wellness director and a Sirius XM contributor, appearing weekly on the Reese Colbert Show. When Erica steps into a room, whether with a professional team, athletes, a corporate boardroom, organizations, one-on-one celebrity engagement, or master class, expect transformation, expect energy, expect results. Welcome, Erica. I'm so excited that you are joining me here on my new podcast, Not in Vegas. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Sheila, for that warm introduction. It's so great to be here, and congratulations on the Not in Vegas podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so happy to be a guest.
Yes, yes. I'm so glad that you said yes because we are
Mm,
talking about the brain, mental health
yeah.
as far as menopause. And I think it's so much that we don't really understand how the brain affects our whole body and how it's not
Mhm.
just healed by, I guess, the scientific way. We actually have to embrace the natural way, the spiritual way, in order to help us survive. So, speaking of survival, can you tell us about your story? Like when survival, what happened with the trauma, and how you even got started in the neuroscience of the brain?
Yes, Sheila. So you shared a little bit in the introduction that you read of me. I am a former Washington, D.C. political executive.
Mhm.
Was going about my business, traveling quite extensively um, for different reasons. And in March of 2021, I was actually traveling again. Had came back from doing global emissary duty, and so we were just had came out of a presidential campaign, and so at that time we were doing more COVID advocacy work, pandemic work, to really find out from communities that weren't comfortable with the vaccine, ways in which we could kind of bridge the gap,
Mhm.
because the pandemic we were a year into the pandemic and more lives were being lost. And I was traveling by car this time, and it was a beautiful Monday. I remember that, and was on I-20, and a truck driver who was, I assume, was maybe in a hurry to get to where he was trying to go, and his anger because the lanes were collapsing into one lane because there was construction happening at that time, and I wasn't moving quickly enough for him. Um, Intentionally, I have to be very clear about this, backed his 18 wheel, 2-ton truck into, or not even 2-ton, excuse me, that definitely exceeded the weight, much heavier than that, into my car.
Oh my God.
And he actually revved up and did it a second time. And that injury, well, those both of those strikes could have ended my life.
Mhm.
Be very clear. What it did do was it introduced me into the world of polytrauma because I walked away from that, and I say walked away, even though I had to regain a lot of abilities again. But I left that accident with a traumatic brain injury that compromised the executive functionality of my prefrontal cortex, which
Mhm.
means that's a long way of saying the ability to regulate my emotions, the ability to make long and short term decisions,
Mhm.
um, were all stolen from me in that moment. In addition to, I had trouble with memory, of course, because it was also my cerebellum that had taken hits as well, the back part of my brain. I had also lost the ability for a period of time to read or to write. I had also lost the ability to be able to drive. I was under the care of 9 doctors and practitioners. So essentially, the message was that the adult woman that everybody had known, who had done emissary duty, been to the youngest nation in the world, advocated for people, was essentially the person that presented in front of them had the functionality of a toddler. And so I had to actually move back up into adulthood. When people say, want to be a kid again, I did actually have that period of time where I actually was a kid again, through this accident. So brain health came to me through an extraordinary way, which is I was brought into a space with the type of care that I have, polytrauma, which means they were my providers and therapists and home health care aides were addressing a multitude of seen and unseen injuries, conspiring to get me back to a place where I had functionality. But what I discovered in all of that, as I moved through all of that, was this amazing ability that the brain actually has. And even in the most compromised sense, because I believe of having this time period where all I could do was lay flat on my back for months on end, just begin to wander and pay attention to focus, because that's kind of what kept me in a place um, of quiet from the crying, the pain, everything that was happening at that time was what's happening to my brain and what can I do to make my whole entire person better. And the answers were really in my brain. It really shifted around what I thought, um, how I felt, what I ate, because we
Mhm.
have more than, the gut is the second brain. But
Right.
yeah, so long story short of it, Sheila, it was by way of a traumatic injury that still impacts me to this day because of the disabilities that I
Mhm.
inherited because of it. But through all of that, the through line of that was that I learned and was really baptized by fire on the abilities of the brain and how it impacts the entirety of the body.
Wow. Wow.
Hmm.
You know, a while ago, last year, I had a dream of E. coli, And I woke up and I thought I had food poisoning because of what I ate the
Mm,
previous night.
mhm,
And so, going about my day, this pain hit me so bad in my stomach. And I
mm,
kept thinking it's food poisoning because I had that dream of E. coli. And being a med tech, it's like it was real traumatic for me to dream that. And
mm,
so I went like that for 10 hours in tremendous pain, agony pain. And I kept thinking, all I got to do is throw up or something. I'll feel better because it's food poisoning. So after my mother dragged me to the emergency room, I'm like the one that's laying on the floor, screaming and howling, rolling around, everybody looking at me on the side of their neck, like, what is wrong with her? And so they came and they gave me a shot of morphine. And that's when
mm,
the pain settled. And I thought, I know good and well it's not that. And sure enough, it was my appendix about to burst.
mm,
When they told me that, I knew then what my brain was signaling. It was like, if that bursts, you're going to have bacteria all in your body, E.
mhm,
coli, And so before the surgeon, before they did the surgery, I asked the surgeon if he could take a picture of my appendix before he take it out. Couldn't figure out why. But because of the trauma I experienced, I knew I needed that picture because what happened when I went home, as soon as I went to eat something, that pain came back, just like it was in the beginning. So I used the picture to try and tell my brain this is no longer a threat because like your brain knows what's there. It doesn't know when something isn't there. And
no, it
so
doesn't. Mm-mm.
when I went back to the doctor and I told him why I needed a picture, and both of us said at the same time, the vagus nerve. And I said, yeah, what goes on in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas. It's like that communication, the vagus nerve is our communication to our brain. And so that's how we communicate. And that's what made me start this whole platform of not in Vegas, because it doesn't stay in Vegas. It's like, right.
Absolutely, it doesn't. And I'm glad that you shared your own experience with regard to not only how the platform came to be, but how you understand the brain. Because what I have discovered over the now for going into 5 years of being very much so deeply invested into the power of the brain is that the brain is wired primally. And so the brain doesn't understand the difference between a text message
Mm-hmm.
or the difference between something that is actually happening in real time.
Mm-hmm.
It is designed to protect us. And so, what your brain was telling your body was like, oh, no, 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 as you said, that is a threat.
Mm-hmm.
But saying back to yourself, this is something that's healthy. It's going to feed my cells. It
Mm-hmm.
is okay for me to eat. The threat is over. Thank you
Yeah.
for issuing the pain as a way to tell me that this is not something normal, that I do need to have this addressed in a more meaningful way. And through the dream, you were
Mm-hmm.
able to see what the potential outcome could have been had it
Yeah.
not been addressed. But the brain is very primal meaning that that brain is wired to say, listen, this threat is a saber-tooth tiger. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're not going to stick around and try to have a calm, collected conversation. We
Exactly.
need to run.
Mm-hmm.
Even again, if that threat is a text message where there's nothing that's actually lunging at us, our
Mm-hmm.
brain is designed to really protect us. And so, what the Reframe Brain does in the platform, and this is the reason why I work with um, not only individuals, executives, C suite folks,
Mm-hmm.
but institutions, organizations, and has moved into athletes is because understanding the power of how we actually can regulate our emotions, understanding, as we talked about, that the brain is actually very primal and it's designed to protect us. And so, understanding how we are and how we can rewire our own stress responses, meaning
Mm-hmm.
that we actually do have control over the way that we respond. And then also the neuro of it all. The neuro meaning you talk about the vagus nerve and
Mm-hmm.
understanding that Neuro simply means nervous system, and
Hmm.
that we do have um, absolute authority over that. And even in spaces where, like, football players are having to discern very, very quickly, as we are in playoff season,
Hmm.
about what they're about to do, the plays that they're about to run. I always share with them, be where your feet are.
Mm.
Understand that there is an invisible game that
Yeah.
you actually have control over, that no one else can master. And that is the blueprint that you want to actually operate from.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
so good. That's so good.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess from first of all, I guess for our listeners that's unfamiliar with polytrauma,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean in real life terms?
Sure. So it means multiple. Poly means multiple. And
Hmm.
so the injuries that I sustained, and I want to be very clear around this, the brain injury happened immediately, but um, the actual audible
Hmm.
um, um, injuries
Yeah.
weren't manifested until almost a week later.
Wow.
People that sustain brain injuries differ from individual. They're like snowflakes. No brain injury looks like another one. And so there are different categories of brain injuries. However, that's looking to be overhauled in a way to really talk about, to really be more representative of that. Number one, brain injuries they are a chronic health condition.
Mm-hmm.
That number two, even with varying degrees of severity, how they do impact people's lives in different ways, and that the onset of the actual injury, even though it is an immediate or immediate impact, sometimes is not actually discovered until weeks and months later. And I bring this forward, Sheila, because I know in the conversation, in the introduction, you talked about menopause and different things of that nature.
Hmm.
In the case of Erica Savage, my presentation was, even after the accident, oh, I have to be here because I'm meeting with this organization. And it took my god sister saying, you don't, let me remind you of what just happened to you. Ma'am, you're not going anywhere. You are in a hospital, you require more medical attention, and you won't be traveling to go to work. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's done. You are right where you need to be. Um, the practitioner, and I talk about this in my book, my personal transformative memoir, that's available on my site, The Reframe Brain, for the month of December. A sale of $15 without shipping. We take care of the shipping, or on Amazon for $25.99 and free shipping.
Hmm.
But if they order it from the Reframe Brain, I personally sign the book. I talk about in my book, in the introduction of the book, the first chapter of the book is called A Few Cocktails. And the reason why it's named A Few Cocktails is because in my conversation with the first doctor that I encountered, I told him I felt like I'd had a few cocktails. The accident happened at 11:08 a.m. I shall never forget that time, March 15th, 2021, 11:08 a.m. And so it was still morning by the time that I was taken to by ambulance to the hospital. And
Hmm.
he said to me, well, have you had a few cocktails? And I looked at him and I said, I think it's morning time. I said, I am a professional. Then I felt the need to run down my credentials. So
Hmm.
this speaks to medical malpractice. This also speaks to, disparities in medical institutions where Black people, people of color, believe that they have to present in a way to be taken very seriously, and then oftentimes are not. So all of that to say that I was not taken seriously and was written the script for a muscle relaxer, and told to come back in a few days.
Oh.
I was out of state, So I was not going to come back to that state because I'm like, I live in Northern Virginia. So why would I be coming back here?
Right.
When I got back home to Northern Virginia and was taken to the hospital because I was getting worse by the hour, it was, praise be to God, a Black woman doctor who saw me, whose team took such good care of me because they were able to see the condition that I was in and that something was very wrong. And her team dimmed the lights because I didn't understand why noise. I couldn't tolerate noise. I couldn't tolerate a lot of light. And she took my hand, introduced herself, and then said, let me tell you about what's going on with you in your treatment course. So that brings me to the polytrauma. She actually, this Black woman doctor in Northern Virginia, God bless her, was the one who actually started my polytrauma treatment course because she told me all of the care. She made introduction to all of the care that I would need. The
Mm-hmm.
9 doctors,
Mm-hmm.
therapists, practitioners, home health care that I would need so that I could get back to whatever was going to look like best living for me,
Mm-hmm.
for me. So polytrauma means that it's multiple injuries and that there are, for me, polytrauma in that case meant that the injury not only that I sustained to my brain, but that also to my back, to my legs, to my feet, to my shoulder, to my rotator cuff,
Mm.
the speech, because my speech was very delayed, very had a very hard time pronouncing words. The issues that I was having with reading, with light sensitivity, noise sensitivity, the auditory issues that I had, the ability, my body was not allowing me to eat a lot of foods.
Mm.
So those types of things, and then the home health care, and then the mental health. I had to have a suicide um, safety plan, which I might add is still in place um, to address the shock that I was continuing to
Mm-hmm.
be subjected to with just the difference in like my life before, my life now. So
Mm-hmm.
it is a multitude of injuries, and usually it's different parts of the body. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
It had me thinking about the symptoms of menopause and how, like, why I talk about the vagus nerve in the brain
Mm-hmm.
because of the hormonal shift that our
Mm-hmm.
bodies go through.
Mm-hmm.
And that hormonal shift is like, I guess women don't understand how the estrogen really works. And we have those receptors in our brain, in our gut, and everything. And so you have that communication thing that's being severed. And then with the hormones trying to get back in balance can lead to the brain fog. And most times, when you go to the doctor, they think, you might be on a couple of cocktails, or whatever. It's like,
Oh,
and you trying to
100%.
figure out, why am I, this anxiety, this, that, and not
Mm-hmm.
even taking into, um, taking, into, what's the word? Knowing that how with the hormone shifting, how that can be affected and starting to address that, um, which is a reason why how I tell women we just don't look at the hormones, but you have to look at the gut health, um, the lymphatic system, and the fascia. It's like all of that is intertwined into the communication device with our brain and how it stops and starts depending on what's not healthy or what needs to be supported. And
Absolutely.
when you said the cocktail part, I almost got to laugh because I designed these bitters to be used to support the gut health and the lymphatic system and all that. But I put on this. this platform about using it in mocktails. And so it's like we're going to
Mm.
sit around and have mocktails with these supportive bitters and talk about the um, the emotional aspects of menopause. So
Yeah, and I think that those things are very important, particularly because what we also know, because perimenopause and menopausal conversations are coming into the cycle of conversations a lot
hmm
more, is
hmm
that those people that are practicing medicine don't know a lot either.
right, right.
And the Black Women's Health Imperative has a report on their website, which I think that your viewers and listeners would definitely be um, would definitely be made a little bit more
Aware.
aware. Thank you. Yeah, around a report from from respondents who are Black women that talked about when they go to the doctor to present specific changes, shifts in their bodies and their
hmm
moods.
hmm
Some women even talking about having suicidal ideations and not even having had those before,
hmm
but not understanding where that's coming from, the difficulty with weight gain, just
hmm
how they would go from being really, really happy to being very, very low at time,
hmm
all of these different things because our bodies are responding to a shift in what it no longer requires any longer was, moving from one season into the next. And so there
Right.
hasn't been a lot of conversation, but there also has not been medical training. There has not been enough information that's provided to them. That is
Exactly.
the beauty, I would say, for me in the polytrauma care that I still receive now. I don't see all nine of those, my suite of doctors and practitioners that I used to see, but I still do see like my acupuncturist, physical therapy,
hmm
and of course, my neuro team. I still see them on a
hmm
regular basis. And here's why, to me, the polytrauma care that I received, I know that number one, my faith in God, I will always forever credit my
hmm
faith in God to be a sustainer in how I was able to actually get to the place that I am now. The
hmm
second thing was that doing the work, having to do the work. So you present information, you talked about your bidders,
hmm
all of the litany of information that you have available to people, but it's not until it's applied that
Yeah.
there can be real change that's seen, right? And but the
hmm
third thing is also, and this is um, the triangle method that I like to talk about, which is I was not being seen for one thing. The entirety of my body was being addressed. And
hmm
so for me, I have often said this is the standard. The fact that I had home health care for almost 2 years. So I always had somebody that was taking care of me and then teaching me how to take care of myself again, helping me with memory mapping. Okay, Erica, we're
hmm
going to this appointment. Now you're going to tell me how I get from here to here, having me make a grocery list of 3 to 5 items and saying, okay, we're going in the grocery store, Erica. And so you have your list, and I'm going to be standing right here, but
hmm
you're going to walk around and get those things. Then having someone in occupational therapy that came in and they um, um, put in shower bars, and I had my shower chair, but they were
hmm
working me through how to use those items and getting me scheduled so that I could come in and do the driving piece to learn how to drive again. I had speech
hmm
um, pathology, which was also connected to memory as well too. Just those are just a few. In the
hmm
acupuncture, the physical therapy, those are just a few of the nine. It was all of those things were happening. So for about a good 2.5 years, my life was a point
Oh.
next. But just imagine, Sheila, and Not in Vegas audience, for those of us who have suffered seen or unseen injuries, having a team of individuals. You specialize in functional medicine, integrative medicine. So think about having that in the your MDs, your
Mhm.
PAs, all of these people coming together to say, you're presenting us with this, and we recognize this, and this connected to that tree that hangs in your body, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And we're saying, I'm taking this branch, I'll take this branch, I'll take this branch, I'll take this branch, and then you maintain the root system. I mean, that is called healing. That is
Yes.
called wellness. That is how we talk about at the Reframe Brain, that we
Yeah.
create and sustain environments of wellness. The
Mhm.
poly approach. And so that is why, with passion and with vigor, I'm
Mhm.
able to do the work that I do and be effective, because I firsthand know this is not something I heard. This is not something that I read in an academic setting. This is not something I read in a cursory setting. This is something that I lived and
Yeah.
breathed through.
Mm, mm, mm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it when you was talking about the suicide part, when what
Mm,
happened to me, like all my life, ever since I started my periods, they were always the same time every month, never missed a month, and they were horrible.
mm,
And so probably like 3 months before my period stopped, I went to my doctor and I told her, I feel a little funny. I wonder if I'm getting ready to go through menopause. And she asked me were my periods irregular. And I was like, no. She's like, well, you got time. You know, you wait till your period starts skipping and everything. So I'm like, okay. Probably like 3 months later, it was like somebody turned off a switch, off a light, just click.
mm,
My period stopped the drop of a dime, never came back. And I felt like my body just crashed. And
mm.
so knowing that no one talked about menopause and your experiences, it's like you hear these little things, my mother used to call them glamour girl sweats. And, you heard people like may have anxiety or whatever. I think every symptom you could think of hit me all at once.
Mm,
And it was at that point, all I could do, I couldn't tell anybody. I didn't know what was going on with me. I stayed in the corner of my condo. I never forget. It was in the dark. I stayed there crying, praying to God to not make me jump off my balcony window. I wanted
mm,
to kill myself. It's like
mm,
it took me weeks in the corner. I mean, I didn't talk to nobody, wouldn't let nobody in. I wouldn't let phone calls. I wouldn't answer. Me just
mm.
on the floor praying and crying, and I'm
Yeah,
sitting there like, who is this person?
yeah.
It's and that's why I was like, you don't know. You hear about women going through menopause and everything, but you never know how it's going to hit you till the time comes.
Mm,
And so for me, to put out there about the emotional aspect, along with the physical aspect, is like, I think needs to be a conversation that should start early in life so women are prepared. Because I didn't even know what in the world was happening to me. My
yeah.
period never skipped. It never, I never started getting hot flashes. And then I got hot flashes for only about 4 months. After that, it stopped, never came back. Not everything stopped. Just the way it started is the way it stopped.
Mm,
And so it wasn't until I started studying functional medicine
yeah.
that I start understanding the
Mhm.
different roller coaster rides and the reason why and
Mhm.
everything, because
Yeah.
couldn't get no answers from anybody else. And so that's
Yeah.
why I always tell everyone, you need that. I take this branch, this
Yeah,
one.
you do.
It's like, yes.
Yeah, polytrauma care is definitely should be the standard of care. And we know that particularly in this country, the country, and I've shared with this, the United States is very laborious. It's very labor forward. It's
Mhm.
if you work hard, if you work hard, if you work hard, if you work
Yeah.
hard, if you work hard, then here's this dream that one can attain. Well, now we're looking at 50-year mortgages. We're looking at people who, as a whole, we have not really addressed the impact of the pandemic. There has not been post-pandemic care that has been
Yeah.
afforded. We went from one contentious election into another election, and so there was this desire to hurry up and
Hmm.
repair, and rightfully so, understanding that. However, there wasn't something in place to really hold space, even in the memorializing and the really at least pauses to say that this has happened to the country. There
Hmm.
wasn't really anything that was done, but um, it, that was also to be expected because it's healthcare is not prioritized in this country. If it was, then everyone would have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And additionally to that, the United States, um, as one of the richest nations in the on the globe, in the on the planet, has failed miserably when we look at the number of days of holiday or vacation
Hmm.
that's taken, which is fewer than 10, where we see in other countries women that have that, whose mind, brain, that
Hmm.
whole mommy brain, well, research has shown that it doesn't just last for a couple of months or just the time of pregnancy or after. It's actually up to 6 years because hormones and body changes. So we think about our ancestors that were having
Yeah.
upwards of 9, 10, 12, 14 children, and not all of them surviving. Sometimes we think
Hmm.
about um, those individuals that have lost and have to just go back to work no matter what
Yeah.
that loss looked like, right? So this country is very labor forward and keep going, keep
Hmm.
moving.
Hmm.
You and I both know that there has to be a healthy emotional process in place in order to experience something and not hold on to it to let it to redefine us.
Hmm.
But that is in the healthiest context, understanding that the environment is healthy. So I bring all those things forward to say that because we do live in a country that is labor forward, it is of the utmost importance in understanding that we don't have a world class healthcare system,
Hmm.
that there are too many people that are hungry, that aren't being afforded um, healthy, cost um, cost conscious options
Hmm.
to live a quality of life that is conducive to not always being heavily medicated,
Hmm.
that we have more of an understanding of the neuro, of
Hmm.
who we are, the
Hmm.
different nervous systems, understanding the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system,
Yeah.
understanding the vagus nerve, understanding that basic building block of life, a cell, epigenetics, that we do have the ability to actually create an environment that produces wellness,
Hmm.
even in um, sometimes the most chaotic circumstances to the best of our ability, and to understand that neuroplasticity, which means that the brain is eager to
Hmm.
adapt and reorganize healthy habits,
Hmm.
that those things are possible. But nicotine destroys or
Hmm.
hinders neuroplasticity. The understanding of the most intelligent, the most powerful design, which is the human body, the understanding of that is what actually makes a healthy society. And so when we walk into a provider's office, when we walk into, whether that's an MD, a PA, functional medicine, integrative medicine,
Hmm.
whoever that person is, I would say to anyone, please know thyself,
Hmm.
know your body,
Yes.
Make
Yes.
sure you're drinking water. Your body craves water when you
Mm-hmm.
first wake up, room temperature water. Understanding that we all need fresh air. We need sunlight. As you mentioned, that time in which your body was experiencing very intense, very sharp change,
Mm-hmm.
that darkness was also helping to cloak that. But when you were able to come to a place where you were able to move forward,
Mm-hmm.
it was coming out of the darkness into the light, which speaks to the
Yeah.
power of light. So, yes, for all of us who understand that, we have to understand the extrinsic, but also understand the intrinsic. That is what empowers us to be able to reframe, which
Mm-hmm.
is to look at something and say, this does not have to always be in which the way that it presents.
Exactly, exactly.
Mm-hmm,
You know,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and I think with in some cases I know it was mine. It was always feeling trapped in survival mode,
mm-hmm,
and that also came along with just how our society is. It's like go, go,
mm-hmm.
go. We don't
Yeah.
take the time to take a breath and
Mm-hmm,
and actually, like I was saying about me listening to my brain and the vagus nerve, it's like taking that time to really get into yourself and listen to what your body is saying. Know
mm-hmm,
yourself, know
mm-hmm.
that something is wrong. It's like I think your brain is so happy to speak to you. It's like, yeah, what you want to know? I tell you, when I hear what's going on down there, I'm gonna let you know. But it's up to us to actually embrace that and trust ourselves into knowing what's hurting us and what we need. And it's like we know, but we don't take the time to actually do the work to make us feel better because we're so busy going, going, going. you know
Sure. And they're not always hacks to this. And let me just add this in terms of like brain. And I'm glad that you mentioned and said this, but I want to reiterate it that the brain is primal and its primary function is to protect us.
mm-hmm,
And sometimes its protection is leaning into what's comfortable and what pattern seems to pad us very well. And
mm-hmm.
that's not always the best course of action.
Yeah.
If I eat Oreos every night and my brain goes, yes, it is number one, past my bedtime. So it's well past 9:30.
Mm-hmm,
It's 10, 11 o'clock at night. And my brain is like, yes, let's get some Oreos. It's going to feel good. That's what my brain is telling me because
mm-hmm,
that is a pattern or that's a habit that I or someone else that I have ultimately introduced to myself.
mm-hmm.
That is not a course of action that I want to continue on because introducing glucose and all of those different things in a time when my body should be at a state of rest, it's done all of its work. The body needs rest just like the human needs rest. Then that's going to produce other outcomes that sometimes can't be overcome. So I just want to make sure that I underscore in terms of the brain that again, the brain is very primal. It is built to protect us. It not built, but it is
Mm-hmm.
designed to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have to be, as you have mentioned, um, know ourselves to a place where we're able to say, because I've had to say to something, not Erica.
Mm-hmm.
Now you need to be doing X, Y, and Z. And that if you follow along with the course of action that my brain is telling me is comfortable, it
Mm-hmm.
feels good. Yeah, it's going to feel good temporarily, but there are negative consequences that come along with it
Yeah.
because we know that there are good consequences as well. So always be able to have healthy conversation, but then also that's why it's really important to be in good community as well. To people that will also say now let me ask you a question now.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question. It's good to have that as well.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned earlier in our conversation, when you talked about spirituality, being connected in faith communities, however that lands for us, so that there is a feeding, because there's not one thing that feeds
Mm-hmm.
us. We have nutrients, we have things that feed us. So
Right.
ensuring that we address all parts of ourselves, the exercise, the spirituality, the spending time in quiet, the spending time in reading, to making sure that we get enough water so that we are
Mm-hmm.
able to address as someone who's a polytrauma patient, the whole of who we are intelligently
Exactly.
designed to be. Yeah.
Exactly. Because I mean, it just reminds how people who like sugar a lot, it's like, I just love sugar. And it's like, it feels good. Your brain is like, yeah, it feels good. But we need to be in that space where we ask ourselves questions. Why do I crave sugar?
Absolutely.
It's always a reason. Things can feel
Mm-hmm.
good, but it's a reason why they feel good. And you need to
Mm-hmm.
be able to say, okay, I like this because this is happening to me. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like you said, that one thing, like I always say, the hormones go in symphony. It's like one thing can lead to another, to another.
Yeah.
So it's not always cut and dry. Like,
Right.
just take this and you'll feel better. It's
Absolutely.
not that. So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
oh, Eric, I just love this conversation so much. I could talk to you all day, all day. I know. But I think I want to ask if what is one truth about the nervous system you wish everybody understood?
It can be rewired wherever you are. I don't care if you're in your 50s, you're like me, you're in your 40s, if you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s,
Mm-hmm.
90s. I was just reading where a gentleman was sharing that he had pastoral care over a 96-year-old woman who had not spoken about traumas that had happened to her
Mm-hmm.
70 years ago, that
Wow.
she was made free at 96 years old. That power of that kind of reframing, because none of us knows how many hours, minutes, or seconds that
Right.
we have left in these frames that we occupy.
Mm-hmm.
But what a powerful moment that at 96 years old, that there was a level of freedom that was experienced at that. I said all of that to go back to answering your question that you said we can always reframe, we can always rewire our nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
The most boldest choice, because I am a bold, courageous, unique, one of one individual.
Mm-hmm.
The boldest choice that I made was to embrace everything that was happening to my body in 2021 when everything collapsed. Everything that was familiar collapsed just like that. And
Mm-hmm.
as a woman that is sitting here before you right now, and if you're listening to Not in Vegas, it's not in happenstance, if you're hearing my voice right now, you can rewire, you can reframe right now. The brain craves it, your body craves it, and you deserve it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Erica. Thank you for sharing your body, your truth, your nervous system wisdom with us today. This was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. So, Not in Vegas family, this is what embodied healing looks like, Erica Savage. And if today's conversation stirs something in you, that's not weakness. That's your nervous system remembering what's possible. You can reframe your brain. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you,
Hey,
Sheila.
stop this. It's a good thing I can edit this because, okay, stop because